All right. Hey, everybody. Sorry. I like my new groove and my countdown timer. And so sometimes I get distracted enjoying the groove of my new intro. So then I'm like, oh, wait, we're live. Hang on. Okay. So, hey, everybody. Welcome to this is kind of a sort of a last minute thing. I didn't put it up until the last minute. We planned this like, I think a week ago or so. But Old
Mhm.
Testament Q&A. I thought it would just be fun if anybody's around with nothing else to do on a Tuesday evening to just kind of Adam and I can nerd out about Old Testament stuff. And if anybody comes up with a question, we will try our best to answer that question for you. So between both of us, I
Yes.
think we've got a pretty good range of stuff. So, we got some overlapping wheelhouses, but Adam's much better at the ancient Near East languages. Like I forget it. Don't even ask me about
Mhm.
about Egyptian. Like that's an Adam question. I got a lot of meta narrative and a whole lot of uh, just other stuff. So we won't go too far deeper into that. So Adam, welcome back. We had so much fun last time, and
We
that was just
did.
that was a kick, and I always enjoy it when you're here. So, but for anybody who might be stopping by who doesn't know who you are by now, just tell them who you are.
Yeah. So I'm Adam, aka Linguisamo. I'm on X as well and Facebook and the YouTubes, and that's all social media I'm on. Um, I have two master's degrees. One of them's in biblical studies from Liberty University, and the other one is in Old Testament from Biola University. And now I'm in that zone, trying to write a cover letter. I actually got most of it written, but I don't know to the university yet. So we'll figure that out once we get closer to November. When we all meet up for SBL in Denver in November, which I still love saying because it rhymes. So that's kind of where I am right now. My PhD will probably be somewhere. It'll involve languages, of course, which is why I'm kind of partial to Texas, University of Texas, because you got Dr. Bruce Wells down there and Hunegard, Dr. John Hunegard. Actually, I think he might be retired, but they're down there. The focus is ancient Near Eastern languages, so I may go there, but that's where I am right now. We'll figure that out probably in November. So that's me in a nutshell.
It's always great
Yeah.
to have Tom to have Adam. I don't know. I just I'm just having one of those kinds of days. I don't even know where that came from. I don't even know.
I'm out. Out.
Okay, yeah, this is where pre-recorded is nice because I can edit that out.
Could have edited that.
I don't.
It's
Oh,
fine.
there's
It's
I
fine.
okay.
I've
I'm
made
I'm
mistakes
not.
too and left them in there recorded.
I have to actually, just for the fun of it, because I am who I am, and I'm going to be derpy, and I'm going to say dumb stuff all the time. So, this is just me, and it's much less interesting because it keeps it light, and we laugh at ourselves a lot around here.
For
'Cause
sure. For
that
sure.
makes it fun. So, yes, and I am still recovering from a very nasty stomach bug that's floating around Portland. So this was
Ooh.
still kind of iffy until this afternoon, and I decided, yeah, well, I'm just so bored that I can't just not do this. Because, and I always love a chance to
For sure.
get to talk to Adam. We just have a great time. Uh, yeah. So it looks like we do have a question. Deborah has a question. So
Okay.
did Adam and Eve see in a different dimension before the fall? Explain what it means when they communed with him and daily, and he walked with them daily in the garden. Okay, so uh, I think I like. Do you want to take a swing at that, and then I'll go after you because this is
Yeah.
chapter 3.
So
Chapter 3 of my
yeah,
thesis.
Genesis chapter 3. So I think what it means when they communed with God, that they were in fellowship with him. I know it's a Protestant term, uh, fellowship with him, but I think that's kind of what it was. They were able to communicate with him, talk with him daily. maybe break bread with them, dine with them, since we're going to see that in the book of we saw that we're going to see that, or at least we see that outline in the book of Revelation. That's what I mean. We're supposed to have this feast with the bride of Christ has a dinner or a feast with Christ. So I think that's what it means in Genesis 3, and that they were able to communicate with him, talk with him on the daily, dine with him even. So partake of the bread and wine. I know Genesis 3 doesn't actually say that they ate bread and wine, but if it's in Revelation and the whole point of it's to return to the Edenic state, and Revelation sort of goes in more detail. John went into more detail in the Apocalypse of Revelation, or in his Apocalypse, that in Eden then, in the past, that there was probably a table, that there was a meal served, so that's what I think.
I think I would agree, but I think I would nuance that a little bit, because we see like Eden is set up as this place that God is meeting with Adam and Eve, that's communing together, and it is not reached perfection yet. You see, it is tov tov. It's very good, but it's never called perfect in Genesis. You don't see that until the final eschaton, the return of Christ, and the book of Revelation happens, and then it becomes perfect. That's when we reach that final perfection. So I don't know that I would say that after the fall, like that they had like different eyesight, or there was a different dimension to the way that they see. I think that if it was a way that we would see different, it's that now, because of the weight of the consequence of death being introduced into this very good world, our eyes get glasses, we get blind, we get just oblivious to things around us, and we're not paying as much attention, and we're not as in tuned intimately with ourselves and with God. But I don't think it causes any kind of a dimensional or ontological change in the way that we interact with the world. So I think it more just is the way that we participate in a world that now has the reality of death in it. So that's what I would say to that. Okay. If you have any other thoughts on that.
No, honestly, I didn't know how much nuance I wanted on it. But yeah, I like it's not going to be the telos, I think is what you were saying. Yeah, the telos will come in Revelation, and it wasn't there in Eden. Then you get this whole concept of mortality or immortality, which gets thrown into the mix, and maybe a change of consciousness.
This is what I would say, because I had to deal with this the fall and the garments of skin in the third chapter of my thesis, right? Because it has a whole lot to do with the incarnation. And so there's this really awesome book called, let me grab it. Hang on just a second.
Yep.
The Genesis of Perfection. This is an awesome book. If you can get your hands on it, it's an older book, and it's by Gary Anderson. He's also the one who wrote that awesome book, To Dwell with His People, about the Temple Tabernacle. Catholic scholar, fantastic. This book is awesome. And there's a whole chapter, and he was talking about this, and I've quoted this a lot, but that deals with the garments of skin, because there's a lot of vaguity in Genesis 3. It only mentions it in the fall. Isn't that many verses, actually, in the whole creation narrative of those 3 chapters. The fall is like a tiny bit at the end, and it's kind of almost a footnote as to how we got where we got. Like, here's a whole bunch of how we're supposed to be, what we were created for, and then there's like a footnote that says, yeah, they messed up and out they had to go. And Anderson talks about that we were created with a priestly role, because one of the things that priests did was to maintain the temple, the tabernacle, the dwelling place with the deity. So they would tend it. And there's a lot. That's why the garden image is so important, because gardens were one places that deities in the ancient Near East world were thought to commune with people. And so we were created with these garments of light that were these an unprotected, unneeded, protected innocence of intimacy with both God and with each other. And when we tried to get to take the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of Tov and Ra before we were ready, then that means that we had to go off on the long way around to that maturation. So we had to be given different garments, because we needed to be like the tabernacle skins, protected from the environment, and we needed protection from the world we were moving into in the wilderness. But we also needed boundaries and protections from from each other, because we were not capable of that unprotected innocence any longer, and that unprotected intimacy any longer. So it is so much more of this idea of needing to be covered for our protection, both externally and internally, which we see repeated in the tabernacle, that God uses to protect not just the inside of the tabernacle, but to protect the people in the camp, because unmediated glory is bad for people. So it's more, I think, a change of needing to have innocence protected, and intimacy has to be guarded. And that changes the way that we relate to each other and to God, because there is that lack of that capability for that unguarded intimacy and connection that we used to have, that when we get back to our garments of light at the final eschaton, that we will get those garments back, and we will be back into an unmediated, unguarded, unprotected relationship with God again. So that's what I would say. All right.
Definitely.
Deborah, why do you think God chose women prophets like Deborah?
Because he
And
wanted.
she said she was also a judge, but wasn't it more of a male thing? So there's a lot of differences of opinion on this. You'll hear a few common, I don't know, typologies or tropes or whatever you want to call it about this. One of the common ones that you'll hear is that there just weren't any good, capable men around, so God embarrassed the men by raising up a woman to do the job, which I am not a fan of that one at all.
No, I'm not. I'm not either. First time I heard that, man, it's like he just wanted to use. You get elevation of women in the Old Testament, so it makes sense that using a prophetess like Deborah seems to align with that elevation of women. So,
and I think one of the things, Adam, that I would say in response to that, and in response to Deborah's question, is that there's something that is, I think, hard for Americans to get this idea, but we naturally participate in it. Is this thing that's called normative means, which that's a fancy scholar way of saying the usual way things are done. Normative means the usual way you do something, right? So when you get in your car to go to work, you usually take the same route every time. You have a basic routine of the way kind of things. When you have to mail a letter, you have to put an envelope, you have to put a stamp, you have to drop it in a box. Like there's a normal way you do things, right? And male judges, male prophets were the normative means that God uses. But sometimes, and this is one of the things that I learned from a lot of my seminary professors who all in very different ways express this, anytime you see an exception, the outside the normative means, you're actually really drawing emphasis on the situation and what is going on in the narrative. So it's not always necessarily Deborah herself, but what's going on in Israel at the time and what's happening. How is Deborah, interacting differently in the story? Because judges were also given command of the army, but Deborah was not. So she still had the military commander. So she didn't have the full role. So there's something that's important for us to notice anytime something steps out of normative means that things are done. And so we have to go back and look at Deborah and say, what's kind of going on here? And sometimes outside the normative means is enough to wake people up to be like, oh, I should probably pay attention because this is weird and not supposed to happen like this.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was going to add that.
I was going to add that it was still a patriarchy, which explains why the men were still, men were still generals, at least or commanders of armies. I think that's a better term than generals. General seems more of a modern term. But yeah, they were definitely commanders of armies, and whereas women normally weren't, to use the normative means there. But I would still argue that the Old Testament, or at least Torah, seems to elevate women, and it was like more so than the surrounding cultures. And that's not to say that they just trashed on women in the ancient cultures. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying that there was more elevation. It was on par with men, so it would seem natural to see women like Deborah or Yain, to use the Hebrew pronunciation, or Yain. We all know what she did. Like in the text, like have a major role. So, which is funny because Yain was at that battle, battle that we just talked about, commanders of armies. So she wasn't a commander, but she definitely did the deed.
Right. And this is another thing that kind of proves my point, because the elevation of women was not the normative means of the cultures around them. Torah did something that was against the normative means of culture by elevating women. And so because that didn't always get followed the way it was supposed to, that doesn't mean that we have to go back and, like, I'm trying to figure out how to say this, like,
words.
The failure to uphold the expectation and the standard does not mean the standard was bad. It just means that humans fail a lot. So what God sets as the expectation and the standard, usually, we don't get up there quite exactly. So the intention of Torah, and I heard this, so I'm going to transition to a question for you, Adam, because this is a good way to transition for this, because I heard this rabbi in this short that I was watching the other day, who was talking about that Torah, because you and I did a whole Torah series, and we were talking about just not this list of 613 rules, right? That it's just these instructions, this community, way to live in community. And he was talking about that word, actually Torah, instead of it being translated as instructions, should actually be translated as invitation to relationship, instead of just as instructions or law. The invitation to relationship is a better way to translate the idea and the concept that is brought about through the Torah. What do you think about that?
You're gonna hate me for this, but it cut out a couple of times, and I was getting snippet. So can if you want to boil it down.
Basically, he said that the word Torah, instead of being translated as law or instructions, should be translated invitation to relationship.
Translated as
invitation to relationship. Yeah.
Translated as
invitation to relationship. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, invitation to relationship.
Yeah.
I could definitely see that. If we're talking about the 10 words, yeah, I would definitely say not only is it instruction, I would say both instructions and an invitation to relationship, more so on the latter. I could see that because that was the whole point of the Exodus, was not only to rescue them from slavery, from bondage, but which is what the water, anyway, there's so much symbolism with that stuff. Anyway, and it actually happened, but God rescue them, and then of course he wants to establish a relationship for it, or otherwise he dwelt among them. I think that was one of the major points, was that he also wanted to dwell among them, the tabernacle. So he tabernacled with him. I think even in the Greek it says he tabernacled with him.
Tabernacled. Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
and then Mark sort of expounds on the walking tabernacle that is
Yeah.
Jesus. But anyway,
So Deborah would like you to explain what Deborah did.
Oh,
because she was like, I don't know what Deborah did, so can you explain it?
instead of prophesying in Judges
Well,
5 with her
in
song,
the battle, that we were talking about, because she didn't go into
thank
battle
God.
and she
I didn't
cursed
have
him
to
for being
translate
a.
Judges 5. It's really difficult to translate Deborah. It really is. And it's like old. It's like super old. It depends on how well or how you think it developed. So yeah, Deborah, other than being a prophetess herself, I think it's just as from the text. I would imagine since she was a mouthpiece for God, which is what prophet or prophetess usually means in those situations. And I honestly think that's really all we know other than the song.
Well, she
The
did
song itself.
curse what's his name for being a chicken for not going to
cursed,
battle without her.
Yeah, she shamed someone for not going to battle. I can't remember his name.
The commander of the armies. He's like, I'm not going to go if you don't come. And so she shames him. Yes. Yeah, Sisera.
Yeah. So yeah, she shames him. So as a mouthpiece of God. So yeah. And then wrote a song about it.
I actually happen to really like Deborah. I think she's a little misunderstood.
Yeah.
No, we won't. We won't make you translate anything live.
Exodus 14 was even worse.
Or 15.
I'm sorry. So Miriam's song, another prophet. Well, I don't think it says it in the text that Miriam was a prophetess, but
I think it does somewhere else. It calls her a prophetess.
Oh, I'm thinking like in Exodus it doesn't.
Yeah, in Exodus, I don't think she does. It does, but it does list her.
So it could be the same thing that Miriam does, just later.
Yeah, I don't know. I think. Oh yeah, we froze out a little bit. Is it static on my line or is it on Adam's?
I don't know.
I can hear a little bit of static, and I don't know if it's.
I don't know. I'm just sorry you had to ask that question like 3 times. And then I asked it hey, repeat this, and then it froze right as you.
Oh no! It may be my internet is not working very well at the moment too. So,
thank you.
It gets a little funny sometimes. Yeah, Deborah was also a judge, but I think her main role was a prophetess, and to deliver that song of Deborah.
I also don't buy the whole men weren't. I mean, it could be to shame the guys, the men. I mean, you've heard of oh my God, the guy in the wine press. Oh my word, I'm brain farting.
Oh, yeah. Oh, good grief. I think I'm flunking Old Testament.
We are failing miserably. Yeah, Barak. Thanks, Deborah. But that's not. I think that was for a question we had earlier. We couldn't figure out earlier, Barak.
I should know that kind of stuff. That's embarrassing. That's funny. I should open an Old Testament. How about that?
There we go. I'm going through that.
Do that. Look at Judges. Okay, let's go look at Judges.
Gideon. I knew it began with a G. Gideon. Yeah, thank you, Roddy Gideon. So I've heard this before. I've heard this before from pastors with Protestantism that Gideon was not so much a coward, but he was cowering in a wine press. Maybe that's one of the reasons why he sent a woman like Deborah to be judge. And I'm thinking that's not what Gideon was really doing. He wasn't in a wine press scared to death, like shaking his little space boots. It just says that he was in a wine press.
Yeah.
And then you get the dual powers of Yahweh there going on with, it's probably Jesus talking to him in the Old Testament language, but they didn't know it was Jesus because it was Old Testament. So, yeah. But Gideon is, we're hopeless. Thanks, Andy, for calling us hopeless. So,
it's
so for some things, I don't think it's for shaming. Like for Gideon, I don't think it was shaming Gideon. I think he just happened to be in a wine press. And not you should be on the front lines. Well, that's not really what's going on there. So I just think he wanted to raise women like Deborah, Miriam, two prominent women of the Old Testament, because he wanted to. And like you said, it was. I agree with you too that it was the normative means, get around the normative means. So
yeah, sometimes we just need to get our routines shaken up a little bit to get our attention. That's for sure. Because okay, so I have another question for you. Ready? We're going to go back to Genesis because that's my third favorite book of the Old Testament. I have a hard time picking because they're all so really, really so good, right?
Is it Ezekiel, right?
It was
Ezekiel number one for you?
Hey, oh well, now Baruch is number one for me, and then Ezekiel, and then Genesis, and then
my son,
all the rest of them.
My son's favorite's Matthew, and it's only because Matthews is his first name. Guess what his second favorite is? Ezekiel, because it's his middle name.
That's awesome. I still love Ezekiel. I still will argue vehemently with Phil and Spencer that Ezekiel is better than Leviticus. But we need all of those. So we're going to go back to Genesis for a second because I had somebody ask me about this, and we're going to talk about it on an episode later. But I haven't really seen a lot of Protestant scholars address this, and I haven't dug into the Catholic and the Orthodox scholars on this yet because I just got asked about it the other day. Because it says in Genesis, I think it's, I don't remember if it's 1 or 2, but it says God says, "Let us make God in our own image and likeness," and then you don't see likeness again in the book of Genesis. That word likeness there, it's just image. It just the word likeness disappears, and so I'm curious as your thoughts, because like Carmen Imes's book on her second book about image of God, she talks about the image of God a lot, but she doesn't address likeness at all. And and I haven't seen a Protestant scholar address it really, but I haven't looked that hard. But I'm just curious as your thoughts, because likeness disappears and we don't see it again until the New Testament. Which is the likeness of Christ,
which is it's really unusual. I don't think it's talked about too much there, which is like, and then there's debate about that, the Divine Council, if in Genesis 1:26-27. But I think the reason, it's kind of a dang good question too, because I've never thought about it. I think it's because, honestly, off the top of my head, it's because we're no longer, I mean, we're still in the image of God, but we've kind of fallen in our countenance with God since Genesis 3. So maybe that has something to do with it. Like, it's the idea of broken imago days. I don't know. That might sound heretical, but like, we don't represent God. We'll constantly break the first commandment, not representing, not the first commandment. But we're not representing God as we should. I think that's part of it, because it dovetails right into Genesis 4. We get, the garden, and then Adam and Eve eat the fruit, and blah, blah, blah. And then you get to Genesis 4. And then you see this heightening of sin all the way to the flood. So that might be a reason why for that. But then you got, hey, Adam, what about Genesis 9-50? I really don't know, honestly. I really thought about it.
Yeah, it was a question that I was just kind of, I sort of noticed it, and then somebody pointed it out, and I was like, oh yeah, actually that's. So here's a couple of my thoughts on this, and then like I said, I haven't done a lot of research into this yet, except I disagree with most of the Protestant scholarship I've seen on it. That I think, because we know from Genesis itself and the genealogy of Seth, that we never lose the image of God. That's not something that's taken away from the fall. You know, he inherits the full image of God from Adam.
Yeah.
Seth does. And I think instead of, because I think it's problematic to say that the image is broken. I think maybe a better way to phrase it, and you see a lot of, especially the Desert Fathers talk about this a lot, that the image of God gets so covered in the weight of the fallen world that it's hard to see it. So that's what the process of, repentance and confession and the Eucharist and all of the things that the Orthodox do is to help scrape that off to get us down to our original image of God.
Yeah.
And that image of God, like Eden, was made unperfected. And that's where the likeness part comes in, because when we become believers, we become made in the likeness of Christ. And so the perfection of the image of God is the likeness of Christ, where we become that it perfects it. So you go from tov, image of God, to perfected likeness of Christ. It's kind of what my thoughts are on that. But I don't, like I said, I have to.
Roddy, and he's like cell phone voice to text mistake, but I think that's it. I always took it as something to do with us. Now, I'm not advocating total depravity here, but what I'm saying is it does have something to do with us. We're still Imago Days. I'm not saying we lost it with the fall. That would be absolutely ridiculous. But I'm saying I think Roddy's right, though. I think it's something that we've done, that we've broken. So maybe that's why it's in Genesis. Maybe that's what the writer wanted to emphasize in Genesis. You don't think so?
I don't know. I was just kind of laughing a little bit at this. Daniel T7 disagreeing with Protestant scholarship. There's a thought, like this was kind of making me chuckle, because I disagree with Protestant scholars a lot. So but that just comes with the territory, I think. Sorry. I don't think, because I think that it comes up once, because there are so many times where things are left veiled in the Old Testament that we just don't get the fulfillment of until the incarnation. And so I think it's all incarnational language that wasn't clear to the Old Testament authors. They may not have fully understood what was going on there. So it's these little seeds are left all throughout, that later, when the New Testament and that through the incarnation, then that's where you get in on the Gospels and all of the Pauline language about the perfection and the image of Christ and the likeness of Christ and all of that they're pulling back and finishing and pulling out that thread and drawing it into the New Testament. So sometimes things are left unexplained in the Old Testament, and not,
I would argue,
understood
or not
later.
argue. I would add Paul's words in that we see through a mirror dimly, and then on that day we'll see whole. So and then dare I say his name? Was it Augustine who said it? The Old Testament is the New Testament. The Old Testament is the New Testament veiled, and then the New Testament is the Old Testament unveiled. So maybe have that backwards, but you I know you know the quote.
Yes,
which I know. Dare I mention that?
Actually,
guy's name.
I have a changing interaction with Augustine now.
Oh, okay.
Interestingly enough, like there are some things that he was very wrong about, but there's also some stuff that he was very right about. There's some stuff in there that is so. Yeah, we'll just leave that one alone. I was going to do. I'm trying to get. I'm trying to track down an Orthodox Augustinian scholar to come and talk about Augustine and how the Orthodox have a very different relationship with Augustine than the West does. So
Protestant family.
Well, no, Catholics took that and run with it, because y'all were protesting something.
It's true.
And it wasn't the Orthodox
Catholics did run with it, and it stopped at Anselm and with his satisfaction theory, and then Calvin and the gang decided to we're going to push this further, and
It's all
And even,
doubling
I even
down
admit
and
when I got
doubling.
first saved, I was like, "Hey, Calvinist, blah blah blah," and the Reformed doctrine. And then now, the more and more I studied, I've told you before, I'm becoming more and more high church. I'm like, yeah, this is not what it was at all. What was going on?
Mm-mm.
So, but
But
anyway,
at all theology, here's another thing that just is another freebie that I learned from. So I I had
Mhm.
systematic theology from a Pentecostal systematic theologian, which that in and of itself is odd. But he
Yeah,
he got up one day and he just was like basically not very complimentary to most systematic theologies.
Mhm.
And I just totally forgot where I was going with this because I got distracted. Dr. Studebaker was absolutely amazing. And he just, oh yeah, Augustine and all of this stuff. And he really uh, gave us a very good step back to give a good think about the systems that we inherited. And he talked about, oh, this is where my point is. All theology is reactionary. Theology is
Mhm.
developed in reaction to something. Starting from Genesis 1, the whole thing is reactionary to something.
Mhm.
So, every time you see, so this is not where, and okay, and I have to be careful here, that a lot of people like to say, oh, this is a new development. This is a new whatever. So in theology, there are very few things that are introduced that are new. Most everything is developed in reaction to something. So for most of the history of the church, when you see, councils and writings and synods and all this other stuff that happened, the Reformation, all this stuff, all of it's a reaction to something. So there's something in there that somebody
Exactly.
sees as a problem and wants to address it. So,
Absolutely.
and that's where you have to learn how to, like with the church fathers, read them like you read the Bible. You have to read them in context. You have to understand who the author is, what they're writing about, who they're writing to, what time and situation they're writing in, because an argument for the image of God to an Arian is going to be very different than an argument to the image of God to an Nestorian than to a Marcionite. So it's all very much contextual,
Yeah.
reactionary. So it's not
I
development per se, but further articulation and clarification.
I had a one of my instructors at Liberty said one time it's like a pendulum. It would swing back and forth because of theology. So,
Yeah. So
especially with when they were developing the deity, or not developing, but they were expounding on the deity of Jesus. You had some in the Arianism camp who would say, "Oh no, he was fully human," and then the non-Arians saying, "Oh no, he was fully God and human," with Athanasius and the councils and stuff. So, um, yeah, I could definitely say it's reactionary to something else, to a different theology, or to a different, yeah,
well, and how do you explain who Christ is without not being heretic? Like it's very, very difficult, actually, if you think about it.
yeah.
Trying to articulate that fully God, fully man at the same time, all the time. And then you get it,
Yeah.
yeah, it can get really tricky. Okay, we have another question up here. So
Yeah.
Deborah would like to explain what a Nazarite vow is and why they do it. Is there such a thing? Is there such a thing now, Deborah? Are people still doing Nazarite vows? Or because I don't know about that. Uh, the Nazarite
I
vows.
don't, I was gonna say
Okay.
I got it up. So yeah,
Okay.
it's from number 6,
Mhm.
which they're supposed to abstain from. It says the vine or grapes, which we all know means alcohol or wine.
Mhm.
They can't cut their hair, and they're also not supposed to be touching carcasses or anything dead. But it's kind of funny because that's already a part of
Right.
some of the laws in the Old Testament. So, and then time in a bath, as Andrew Rillera says, most of this stuff requires, if you violate it, just requires a bath time, and then you've got to make the appropriate sacrifice, which is non-atoning or atoning, depending on the impurity. I really love Andrew Rillera's book. I thought it was fantastic, by the way. I don't know if you guys, Lamb of the Free, if you guys don't know what the book, I actually have I just read it through my university library. I don't actually own it. So, because I'm
Oh.
poor. Uh, But getting back to the Nazarites, so they're supposed to abstain from alcohol, cutting their hair, and avoiding um, uh, things that are dead.
They're not supposed
So
to defile themselves with their parents or
it,
their siblings either.
it's yeah. So which
Yeah.
so a Nazarite would shave his or her head, which indicates women.
Mhm.
Women could participate in this vow. Again, there's goes back to that elevation and breaking away from norms. At the entrance of the tent of meeting and burn the hair. The priest would then offer the wave offering, and the Nazirite would be released from his or her vow. That would be the end of the vows. So, two people in the Old Testament. One of them, I think we all know, did this vow and did it horribly. Was Samson in Judges 14, 13 and 14.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one, not so well known, but well known to all of us, is the final judge, Samuel. Samuel
Mm-hmm.
was also a Nazirite, which, yeah, he was probably, you could compare and contrast the two. Actually, that might have been what the writer of Judges was doing. I know Samuel was in a book, a different book rather than Judges. I think Samson was the last judge in
Was the
Judges,
last in the book of
mentioned in
Judges, and
Judges.
then
And Samuel was the first
Samuel's.
in the book that
Yes.
bears his name, which we all know he
Yeah.
didn't write. So, so yeah, I mean, you can compare and contrast. That's probably why the writers did that. Was Judge, Samuel was probably, I wouldn't say the worst. Well, maybe, I don't know. There's debate about judges too about that being didactic, best judge to worst, and then
It
other
was
people
not in chronological order, that's for sure.
definitely correct. So, but Samuel seems to be the one who followed the Nazirite vow correctly, and Samson failed miserably in the Nazirite vow. But he's also in the Hall of Fame chapter in Hebrews. So
Yeah, that's one of those things. I think so. Do you think John the Baptist was a Nazirite? Because there is speculation that he may have been.
really, this is something I haven't
Yes.
considered. But hair,
Mm-hmm.
the
He
hair
didn't
fits.
eat alcohol. He didn't
No
eat like
alcohol. The hair fits.
he ate kosher. He ate like locusts and honey.
Wild
So
locusts and honey. So he
yeah,
fits. I wouldn't have a problem. I don't know. Has someone put that forth?
yeah,
Has
I
someone made
heard.
an argument about that?
Yeah, yeah. It's because I got to read Dr. Dillon's new book that she just released a few months
She the
ago
one?
about St. John the Forerunner. Yes, she addressed it in there. That there's all these theories about St. John
There
the
you go.
Baptist.
If she's listening,
So she,
Dr.
well,
If,
she
if,
was
if
mostly
Dr.
like,
Dillon's listening, here you go.
yeah,
You're
it was
selling it to me now.
mostly
So
just she was dismissing it in her in her book, but I just brought that up as a question because it has come up, and I'm like, it wasn't a gotcha because I like I said, I got my own opinions.
I could
about
see it. I could definitely
things,
see John the Baptizer, Forerunner, as a Nazirite.
because he was set aside from before birth with a specific purpose, and his hair was not cut, and he didn't drink alcohol, and he was, so it doesn't say. So it's one of those things we don't know. So maybe there's also speculation that he was
It's interesting.
an Essene, maybe. So one of those fringe groups.
Yeah, Essene, yeah.
Yeah.
There's some, I don't know. I just did a quick thing on Logos, and some people think Paul may have been a Nazirite, hinting at Acts 21. They're using Acts 21. So
yeah, this is
I don't know about that. That might be too far, but that's
I think this is where people have to pick dissertation topics. I think what a lot of that is. Here's another peek behind the curtain. At least half of the dissertations that are written are just because somebody needed a topic.
Just someone needed. I'm interested in this. Says their supervisor.
You have to make some kind of contribution to the conversation. So you have to get creative, and you're
so scared. I'm so scared to appear before that panel. Well, this is gonna dictate your future scholarship. Oh, my camera can't focus. There we go. It's gonna dictate your future, like immediate future, not long run, but short run here about.
Well, I
Get
have
it right. I'm terrified. Like And then supervisor number
yeah.
2, you know, the stereotype
Uh-huh.
of supervisor number 2, it's crap. But
Well,
supervisor 1's like, oh, you're doing great.
I had to go through that advisor second reader oral defense process in my thesis because I actually wrote an actual thesis because it's becoming one of these things. Here's another peek behind the curtain of what's going on. A lot of these seminary programs are
Oh, I'm laughing at
not
Lottie's comment
making.
on Southern Baptist.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
A lot of seminaries now aren't making students write rigorous theses. You have to do what's called a capstone project and write this big paper that is supposed to be like, it's supposed to
125
be
pages.
a short version of a thesis that shows you can academically write a thesis, but it's not a thesis because you don't have to put in the rigor and you don't have to defend it. And it's not peer reviewed, as far as I understand, in the same way.
I will interject. Viola,
Mhm.
they told me at the beginning of my master's degree, this is a master's degree to continue into a PhD. So we are prepping you for it. That's why, because I had a question about that. I said, it's interesting. It's not a thesis. They go, no, it's not a thesis. It's a capstone paper. We're expecting you to progress into this is prepping you to go into PhD level. So that's what this capstone paper is for. I'm like, okay, well, at least you're honest about it. So,
well, I think I feel a lot more less unprepared having done the defended thesis because that thing was like 85 pages long and it is footnoted to the nines and it had it and I had to defend it and I had to like, well, why did you use this citation by this one? Why did you use this? Like, why did you choose this? How come you did that? Why didn't you do this? Like, so I had to defend all. So here's a tip for you, Adam. You ready for this? So when you get started and you get your bibliography of your stuff that you're researching, you can go into like Logos or whatever and create an annotated, make it like an annotated bibliography. But when you cite something, you can also make yourself a note as to why you chose that citation. So then you don't have to go back and try to remember like 6 months later, why did I choose that 5 months ago? Like,
I use
how come I
Zotero
chose
right
that
now
one?
to create my bibliography.
Yeah, that way they can do
Imes
that
actually
too.
suggested that. Dr. Imes suggested I use it. I'm like, And then she went through like a mini tutorial in class, and I'm like, And now I use it. So
yeah, you can do the same thing and add tags and notes in Zotero. So you can note, I use this citation on this page, and here's why. So then you don't have to try to remember. You can just go look. So that's just a tip because I wish I would have. I wish I would have done that sitting there with Father Bogdan going, why did you use on heresies instead of on the incarnation? And I'm like, because it wasn't this obvious. Well, that's what I did. Like, I don't always want to pick the obvious option. I would rather make an argument and do, it sometimes can be a stronger argument if you're using the thing that's not the obvious that everybody knows. So that's why I did most of those. But
for sure.
That's okay. I've asked all the questions so far. Do you have a question?
So I was actually thinking that I didn't know which questions to ask is the thing. So, oh my gosh, now you're gonna have to. I'm gonna waffle a little bit here before I can think of a question. So there's not air.
So
there's not quietness.
While you think about one, I'll throw out another one to think while you're thinking. Okay, and then you can just kind of throw out something. Oh, you come up with one? Okay.
No, I'm still trying to think of one.
Okay.
I'm trying to think.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. If you have one, go ahead. We can
get to mine. I was going to say, since we're talking about prophetesses and women of the Old Testament, and we talked about the normative means of women in the Old Testament and how we, it creates an exception and that exception should be observed and more than once. Well, I think it's 3 times or so. If it's mentioned 3 times, but I was going to, dang it, I had it. Oh well. It was related to Deborah. I was going to talk about Deborah. I didn't know what. Okay, this is really a yes or no one. So who is your favorite and why, as far as women of the Old Testament?
JL. Easy.
Yeah.
I love JL. Yes, I love Jael. She didn't like to have the wits about her to
Hmm.
to be like, okay, and to have a suspicion of who that guy was, and to be like, here, let me, and then drive a stake tent peg through his
Stake
head.
through.
and
Yeah.
and it's so funny because she ends up with the glory that um what's his name should have had by not killing the guy in the first place. Like
Yeah.
JL just steps up and she's like, I'll do it. I'm a girl. I'll try to tent peg through his head. Like JL is my favorite woman in the Old Testament.
I will definitely murder that
Absolutely.
guy for you, God.
That's right.
Or kill. But they were in war. It would be kill. She did break the commandment because they were in war. But yeah.
I'll
Okay.
do Deborah's question
Psalms.
and then I
Oh,
have another one for you. Both. Which is
it
your favorite
is.
psalm and
It is
why?
the very first one.
Oh, that's a good one too.
The tree by the river.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. So I'll bring it up, but
Yeah.
it's one of my favorites. Um, Logos. Okay, yeah. And it's not because it's really short. It's blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, nor stand in the path of sinners, or sit in the seat of scoffers. His delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law he meditates day and night. He will be like a tree firmly planted by streams of water, which yield its fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither, and in whatever he does, he prospers. The wicked are not so, but they are like chaff or chaff, however you pronounce that, which the wind drives away. Therefore, the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For the Lord knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked will perish. I guess it's because it's not only it's just like compare and contrast. I like both. In literature, we call them opposites, like bipolar opposites. Um, Binary opposites is what we call them. That's it. We call them binary opposites. And I like this contrast between the righteousness and the wicked, and blesses the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked. And then it lists a set of things that it lists a set of things for that a righteous person would not follow or do. And then you get the second half of the psalm, that the wicked do those things, and what it leads to. So they become like the chaff that is blown in the wind, um, which kind of reminded me of Jesus in the New Testament with building a house on sand or rocks. So the house builds on, you build a house on sand, the storm comes and it blows it away, and then the house that's built on a rock will withstand it. So um, that's one of the reasons why I liked the first song. So,
I don't have um one particular favorite. My favorite is a section which are called the Psalms of Ascent, which are like
mm,
119 to 133 or 120 to 134, depending on which version you're looking at.
yeah.
And those are the ones that people would sing as they were going up the steps to the temple to worship. And so in those psalms, each one is progressing you closer and closer and closer to God. And so I love to just read through them, because it starts, the very first line of the first Psalm of Ascent is, when I was afflicted, I cried out to the Lord and he heard me. And then by the time you get to Psalm 134, you're, you know, doing pretty well there. So I like the
Hmm.
progression of those together in order, I guess.
Hmm.
That would be my answer. Okay, we got another question here. What do you guys think is the theme or meaning of the 3 to 4 things too hard to understand in Proverbs 30? Proverbs 30. I might need to switch versions for this.
Oh. Um. So the words of Agur and Proverbs 30. I'm just thinking Psalms for a second, but okay, yeah. So yeah,
Yeah,
the words of Agur. Okay.
I'm trying to find where that is. Let's see.
Every 3 or 4 things. too hard to understand.
Okay. 3 things too wonderful for me, 4 things I do not understand. So
Oh, okay. Yeah, 18, starting in 18. Okay.
Yeah,
Right. Okay.
that's interesting.
The way of an eagle in the sky, the way of a serpent on a rock, and the way of a ship in the middle of the sea.
Did you notice the verb shift there at 18 though, Adam? Because in the 3 things too wonderful for me to understand, that's a third person plural. And 4 things I do not understand is a first person singular. Uh-huh.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is really interesting because
Everything I do not. Yeah, that's in the 3 That's in the 3. It's
Mhm.
participle, right?
Mhm.
No. Yeah,
Mm-mm.
call perfect first person. No,
Yeah,
it's not a
call.
participle. It's call.
No, it's called. It's a
So
yeah. Nifa'al Katal perfect third person singular is
yeah, that
wonderful.
is.
And then the second one is a verb call Katal perfect. So the first one's a Nifal perfect, and the second one is the Katal perfect. But there's also
Yeah.
a change in person and
There
in.
is. Yeah, I did see.
So it's
3
once.
3 MP, and then you get a 3 MP, and then
I'm wondering if that's not
call one.
a Trinitarian reference there actually, because
Might be. But I could see that.
yeah, and then the second one
Yeah,
because
too hard to
the
understand.
things that are too wonderful is third person plural, but the thing I do not understand is talking about is the reference to the speaker, not the thing that
Yeah.
the 3 things that are referenced are outside the person who's speaking.
Well, yeah, because yeah.
And then
And the way of
and
a man
then what is
made.
wonderful in the ancient Hebrew mind, what is wonderful but God. So
The eagle and the serpent give me I think Ezekiel 1 vibes.
mhm.
The eagle and the serpent, even Daniel with the beast and stuff. But I don't think that applies here because it's one of the things that he understands, unless he's talking about the world.
So the 4 things here are the way of an eagle in the sky. So man then didn't know how to fly. I mean, we still don't know how to fly. We have to get on a plane or something to fly.
Yeah.
The way of a snake on a rock. Most of us don't do that either. The way of a ship on the high seas. Most of us, we're not boats. So, and then the way of a man with a girl. So, yeah, I think this has to do with that broken relationship that we have with creation itself.
Okay.
Is what I would think. I don't know. What do you think about that, Dandelion T7? Does that work?
I like it so far, and then it goes into verse 20, which isn't
Yeah.
really good,
No.
because it looks like it's contrasting.
See, and then 21.
You got the adulterous woman,
Mhm.
which I think there's imagery with an adulterous woman and a serpent elsewhere in the Old Testament. So,
Yeah. Well, that just gets into Daniel and Babylon and some of that imagery
and
in
then
the Revelation.
Yeah. And then serpent would have echoed Genesis 3 again.
When you get it repeated in 21, under 3 things the earth trembles, which would be the glory of the Lord, and under 4 it cannot bear up, which would be the 4 things that you don't understand, which would be those things that you're short on, your shortcomings, and lack of wisdom, which would be Proverbs, would be a lack of wisdom. So I think my brain is going to the difference between Solomonic and Jobonic wisdom, that this wisdom and that brings us into relationship with God is something it's wonderful, but we can't understand it. And the Solomonic wisdom, which is that wisdom that we just gain through life, but that we don't know it. We have to learn it. You don't understand it until you participate in it and mess up and learn from your mistakes. So that would be my thoughts on that. So, yeah, that's what I think. All right. Says, I've had this one on the back burner of my brain for a while. Most commentaries I've seen say that the woman is the odd one out because the result of the action is visible, i.e., baby. I don't know what I'd have to look. Here's another secret about me. I guess it's not so much of a secret. People have heard me say it enough. I'm not a fan of commentaries. I'm just not. I am not a fan of commentaries. They can have.
Before.
Yeah,
I'd rather read books before commentaries.
Yeah, I'd rather read actual scholarship on the words and the culture and how it interacts with the things instead of some of that other stuff. So,
not to say they're useless. Yeah. It's just we have.
They're not my favorite things. Okay.
There's certainly ones to stay away from.
That say
less.
What do we think of the book of Ecclesiastes? I want to hear your thoughts first because I have some pretty wild one for people.
I thought it was on Ecclesiastes because I was like, that book I'm not really familiar with.
Yeah.
Ecclesiastes.
Yes.
So I love it. It's just if I could spell it. There we go. So, or Koheleth. So, I absolutely love the book. It sort of reminds me of the maxims and the wisdom literature of the ancient Near East. Some of the stuff you'll find in Ecclesiastes, you'll find as well in the ancient Near East. And that's not to say that it makes it less unique. It just, I like what John Walton said, that the writers of the Old Testament drank from the same cultural river. So there's going to be some overlapping, some exchange of ideas. That's why the creation account sort of resembles other creation accounts in the ancient Near East. And we see the same thing in Ecclesiastes with Koheleth, as sometimes it's called, which just is a Hebrew word for meaning preacher. I don't want to confuse it with the hymn of the Aten, because I think that's a psalm that it's sort of akin to the hymn of the Aten in Egypt. But what is it? Chapter 2 is probably the one that I keep reminding myself, which is that contrast of pleasure and I want to say soberness. With the idea of the funeral, and you just make merry, and then the funeral sort of sobers you up. It sort of makes you think, life is fleeting and everything. So I'm trying to find that verse. I thought it was like 2:7, but no, it's not 2:7 because that's talking about enslaved persons. Yes, I got it backwards. I think it's 7:2. Am I there? No,
I'm not sure.
I'm trying to find this verse. I can't think of it.
I'm looking at the wrong thing. There, get rid of that. Okay.
So
get into Ecclesiastes. I like Ecclesiastes. Okay. My answer is going to be a little weird for some people, but I think that this sounds a lot like the
3:2
reflection of someone who is sitting in Sheol looking at the totality of their life, is what I think. I think this is the musings of a dead man.
Yeah, I was getting that too.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I think I was getting that too, reflecting on his life, or maybe just the world that he was living in. Yeah. I did find it was Ecclesiastes 3:2 with the famous 3:2 through 3:8 or 3:8, a time to give birth, a time to die. Like there's a time to weep and all that. So I won't read it all unless you guys all want to hear it. But like that is something I kind of read occasionally to like, okay, especially with the past years of my life in general, with how it's gone. So it really spoke to me. If I can say that, I don't know if that's a Western thing to say it spoke to me, but it did. It resonated with me. I think it's a better term. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's
Yeah, I think I really do. I think this is the musings of someone from Sheol that are recorded. Uh, However that happens, like because you see communication between the afterworld and
Mhm.
Sheol in a certain occasion. So it's not outside the world of impossible. Like it's not outside the world of possible. I don't know. However you say that, however you say that correctly.
outside the world of
Um,
possibility.
that's right. It is not a normative. It is not a normative means. However, I think that this is the reflection of someone in Sheol. That's what I think.
I could see
So.
it. I mean, he's going through. I'm
Hmm.
just like
Hmm.
skimming through the headings
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
futility of wisdom, futility of
Hmm.
labor.
Yep.
There's a time for this, a time for that. So I could definitely relate to,
And yep.
yeah, and of course we
And
all know the song, yeah. But I didn't even think about the song until I saw Roddy there. But yeah, I could see
and
that reflecting.
it ends basically with and everything else Torah, God. So, you know, it really, I
12.
think, yeah, in chapter 12, at the end, hear the word,
Yeah,
the whole end of the word. Fear God and guard his commands, for this is the whole person. For God will remember every action and judgment in each thing that has been overlooked, whether good or wicked. So, this is someone I think sitting in Sheol, understanding that they're about at some point going to have to face God and pondering over that exact thing. What is God going to remember for me in action, in judgment of things that have been overlooked, whether good or wicked? So that's what I think, but I can't prove that beyond a reasonable doubt.
it's really difficult to prove anything from the ancient world. So you're right there with
Yeah.
all of us. So like trying to prove Abraham existed. Well, can you prove it? Well, no. Do you think he existed? Yes.
I
So
sometimes, okay, I'm just not going to say that out loud. I will just censor myself right there. Okay, so I have another question. So everybody, both
yeah,
of us can kick this around for a little bit. So you see that God gives his people the tabernacle so that he can dwell right in the middle of everything. You know, the camp in
yes,
Numbers is set up very specifically, and it is very different from everything else we see in the ancient Near East because they all have
it is.
temples, high places, gardens, elaborate, permanent things. And the gods are like, all right, you little nobodies, come up here to me. And God's like, nope, I'm going in the middle of all of you. So, but then you see David go to God and say, this tent isn't good enough for you. Let me build you a temple. And
Hmm.
God's like, oh, are you sure? And David's like, yes. And he says to David, not you, but your son, because your hands are covered in blood.
Yes,
So the concept, because tracing how temple and tabernacle are used image wise can get a little funky sometimes, but there a cosmic shift in how God is participating with Israel, right? Because in the temple everyone has to go to him, and in
yeah,
the tabernacle he's in the middle of everything. Would you say that that would be what we would call a divine condescension? Condescension meaning not God is going up to the temple because he's removing himself because he's better than everybody, you know,
yeah.
in the other
I think
gods
it.
kind of way.
Yeah,
It's meeting them where they are.
yeah. I think it is divine condescension. I think that's the perfect word for it. To be honest, we get caught up in the other definition that we seem to forget that there's the second definition, which just simply means to come down. So we see that with the tabernacle and the temple as well, and then the second temple, because the first one was destroyed. So I see that, and I think that's what maybe Mark was trying to get. I mean, Mark he doesn't outright call him a walking tabernacle. Well, maybe I can't. He kind of does. He does it much more fashionable literarily, anyway. But than I would have is what I'm comparing myself to him. That's why I'm saying he's writing it better, even though his Greek seems less on par with Luke and John's. Anyway, so I think divine condescension is the perfect word for it. God comes down to meet us and then dwell with us. That doesn't subtract, or that doesn't mean that we are stupid or less intelligent. I don't think it's an attack that way at all. So that's the short answer.
Well, I think that shows how far God is willing to go to meet us where we are.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting because
Yeah.
the tabernacle is chapters and chapters and chapters of elaborate instructions and naming of craftsmen and details and materials. And it's just, and then you get to the construction of the temple itself, and there's not a whole lot there, except you get a whole lot of stuff about how Solomon broke every possible Torah regulation in building the thing in the first place. Because he's,
horses.
He's got this list of everything kings are not supposed to have is his like, here's the wealth of the king, and he's enslaving his fellow Israelites to build it. He's, bartering, marrying foreign women to get relations, to get, cedars of Lebanon and all this other stuff. Like, so he's breaking, like, this poor thing was cursed from the beginning. Like, it was not built properly. It was not a Torah compliant construction of that thing.
Yeah.
Which I was, that intrigues me, that idea and that aspect of. And I heard a scholar the other day was talking about how that they didn't repeat all the instructions for building the temple the way they did with the tabernacle, because it was just taking those original instructions of the tabernacle and making them permanent fixtures, so they didn't need to be repeated. All that imagery and all of the, all the decorations and all of that stuff was going to be repeated, so it didn't need to be put in there twice, because they didn't like to waste parchment. And
yeah, I mean, I guess
I'm not sure I'm a fan of,
I'm not sold
that
on that
as
one.
much.
I'm not sold on that much.
I mean, I could see part of their point, but I don't think that was the whole point. I don't
know.
I just
don't think so.
But then it gets complicated because you've got, and this is where it gets interesting too, Adam. And I'm curious your thoughts about this, because you get into like Ezekiel, one of my favorite books, and it talks about, the temple imagery and the new temple, and then there's not a sun or a moon because the new temple is God. God is the new temple, right? And all this, it's imagery, and then you've got the whole mess that happens when they return from the diaspora after the temple is destroyed. And they don't build it right away. And then when they do, those people who had seen the old temple look at this new temple and weep because it did not have the glory of Solomon. And then you get to like Herod's temple, which is something very different. And I don't know how many times I've had to explain to people the difference between Herod's temple and Solomon's temple. And there's like 3 temples. So you got to explain it to people. There's this, and so, but then you get into the New Testament in John 1:14, he's very specific that Christ came and tabernacled among us. He didn't use the word temple, he used the word tabernacled. And then you got the book of Hebrews, which never uses the word temple. It's all tabernacle language. The book of Mark really leans into this tabernacle theme. So you've got,
heavily.
But then you got Paul, who's bringing in temple language. So it's kind of a little bit confusing. So what do we do with this whole contrast if the temple is a divine condescension and we return back to the tabernacle? Like this, it's a little interesting.
I think so Mark's using this tabernacle language, and we got Paul using temple language, and I think it's since Paul seems to be working with more Gentiles, I think Paul was working with more Gentiles than Mark was. I mean, I know Mark, we're talking about John Mark being on the same missionary journeys with Paul as it's laid out in Acts, but I think he's talking about the temple more with the Jews, because that's how the Jews associated everything as far as the temple is concerned, rather than the tabernacle, because that, and they were living it. The temple was there. Well, yeah, the temple was there. I had to get my history right there for a second. but the temple was there. The presence was felt. It was seen. All you had to do was go to Jerusalem, at least before the Jewish revolt of '66, and I think that's why we see Paul use more temple imagery in his epistles. I think in Romans he actually uses it too. So um, I think that's why. Whereas Mark uses the tabernacle. Um, so
Its Jews would have been a lot more familiar with the tabernacle
I
than
think they
Gentiles would have been.
You think they were more familiar with the tabernacle than the temple?
I think the Jews would have been, yeah, absolutely, because that's part of their history. That's the whole, book of Exodus
but
is
yeah,
the temple.
oh yeah, because I did see. So yeah,
the
I think that's
tabernacle.
why Paul
Yeah.
was. I think that's why Paul was. I don't mean to talk over you. I'm sorry. I think that's why Paul uses the temple, whereas Mark uses the tabernacle.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still thinking this over because but I like that thought.
In
But yeah, it was
Hebrews,
just well. He said, I'm gonna
Dandelion
I'm
says
gonna
that Hebrews uses the word.
I'm gonna fact
Yeah.
check this because when I was looking at Hebrews as part of my thesis research, I searched the book of Hebrews in Greek for the word temple, and I did not find it.
Yeah, it starts with an iota. Yeah.
Yeah, it was always the word tabernacle. The word temple never appeared. There's this difference between in Greek temple and tabernacle are very different words. You would not confuse those. So, but that's just my pathetic Greek. My Greek is not. My Greek is very rusty. So. Okay, so Deborah wants to know all the prophets in the Bible, do their names have a Hebrew meaning? So
all names had a meaning.
But
all of them had.
Okay, I'm going to riff on one of my pet peeves for a second, if it's okay. Yeah. Well, we can because it's my channel. I can do what I want. Here's one of my big pet peeves. I think that there's this thing, Adam, that has come out of what the Enlightenment and the post-Enlightenment have done to biblical studies, and its effect on over-inflating the importance of scholars maybe above where they should be, and has turned biblical languages into semantic forensic puzzles. And so I see a lot of this stuff on like Facebook and Twitter and stuff like this. And people like, come take my class to unlock the secrets of Hebrew with, the secret meanings of everything. And
the deep meaning of Genesis 1.
Right. Like it just, it's not this kind of like Da Vinci Code. If you put the Hebrew in the right order and pronounce it correctly, the names are going to line up to some sort of like, the Ark of the Covenant's going to drop out of the sky in front of you or something. Like that's not how it works. Yes, they have significance. They do mean something. All language conveys a meaning. All words, all names, everything conveys a meaning, but it's not in such a way that does have some kind of like secret, you need to get your decoder ring out of your Cracker Jack box and figure out what the secret message is in the Hebrew or the Greek or the Aramaic or the Sumac or all of that kind of stuff. Like those things are helpful and they can bring nuance to things.
Yeah.
But it's not, like I said, it's not a forensic puzzle that has to be a secret code that only people who know, I don't. Hebrew changed the way that I saw the scripture and I saw my faith and I saw and interacted with God and the big reason why I left Protestantism. But it wasn't because there was a secret code that was unlocked with a whole bunch of meanings of old things. It's because it taught me how to think, how it's a better way to understand how what I was reading in English was written, to say, to understand the rhythms and to understand like the way that they were thinking about it, not to unlock some secret.
I was going to say when I learned Hebrew, it opened the door, like this whole different understanding of an ancient world, like because languages do that anyway. They like open a
Yeah.
window or a door into that culture, and that's what Hebrew does. And you begin to think differently. Well, the English, well, this word doesn't really match.
Mhm.
This Hebrew word doesn't really match that English word. Um, so it sounds like it's saying something like we lose the translation going from Hebrew
Mhm.
into English with certain things. And I think my paper, and I don't mean to boast about, hey, I write papers all the time, but with the story of Pharaoh, I think I talked about this with you before. I wrote
Mhm.
on the free will of Pharaoh from Exodus 20,
Mhm.
and that the Hebrew words there, chazak, in particular, that's the one I wrote most on because I think that's the one that appears the most there. More or less means to encourage or to strengthen, and you see that in the Joshua, in the formula of Joshua, be strong and courageous. You see that in the book of Joshua almost all the time. It's translated as strengthen or encourage, but you get translations that translate it as hard, like the heart of Pharaoh was hardened. Well, that's not exactly what that word means. It means strengthen or encourage. So when you come across passages in Exodus 7 where God is encouraging or strengthening the heart of Pharaoh, but you have to put but because then because the subordinate clause following it is a negation. So, but Pharaoh did not let the people go.
Mhm.
So
So
I think that's what I mean with lost in trade. I know
mhm.
I'm getting off topic with names.
That's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
But yeah, just to Deborah's follow-up question here. Yes, Deborah itself, the Hebrew word does mean bee, or it can mean bee, but I don't know that there's any secret super significance beyond
Yeah, I don't think.
that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right.
So I don't think there's any significant. I mean, they all have meanings. Like Asher
Yeah.
means happiness. Matthew means gift.
Yeah.
In the Greek. So but I don't think they go beyond those meanings at
Right.
all.
But and sometimes there is significance to the names, but this is one of the things that blew my mind. Dr. Jossberger, or was it? Yeah, it was Dr. Jossberger. One day we were going through translating Genesis, and somebody asked a question about somebody's name, and about names in Scripture, and like she pointed out, Bathsheba wasn't actually her name because Bathsheba is the daughter of Sheba. So
Yeah.
sometimes things that we think are names are titles to either like demarcate
Abimelech.
someone who is given a special designation for something that they had done, or like I think with Bathsheba, to protect her identity. So, I think that who the woman Bathsheba was, her name was protected in history by calling
Yeah.
her Bathsheba, the daughter of Sheba. So it might not even always be their given name. It may be a name that they've been given or are using for another purpose. So, you can't put, like we said, you
Yeah.
can't put too much stock in that.
No,
So,
Abimelech was another one.
mhm,
That just seems to be a title for
mhm,
Father of the King, or my Father the
yeah,
King. So
yeah.
yeah.
So, yep,
So sorry
Abba
to get off
Melech,
topic.
because yeah.
And then I got off topic
Oh,
with losing and lost in translation and stuff.
that's
Oop.
okay. It is, yeah, it is, I think, another one of those things that people get a little overly enthusiastic about
Yeah.
sometimes.
Or
Like,
what was the other one? It's like Jesus, the South. Was it in Genesis? If you go by each name in Genesis 5, I think it is. It spells out Jesus. They think it like Jesus comes in the flesh to save humanity or something. I'm like, that's not
yeah,
what's going on in the
like,
text.
no.
It's not what's going on. I don't care if you
Uh,
think it's clans or not,
I, it's just
but
sometimes I think our modern forensic legalistic brains just look for hidden clues and
yeah,
things that aren't necessary. In the ancient mind, like would look at you like, I how are you walking upright? That you're
yeah,
gonna
exactly.
ask a
I, I
question like that.
I was at an Egyptology conference a few years ago, and one of the Dr. Robertson from the University of Memphis is giving a lecture on I'm going to mention Ramesses the second, and Ramesses, or not the second, and Ramesses the sixth tomb, number 6. it's got stars on above, and then he's like relating it to something else and everything, and he's translating it, and he goes, he's like, he gets to the word night, and he kind of chuckles. He goes, "There's nothing literary about that. It just means night, darkness. That's
The
it.
sun went down.
The sun went down. There's no light." you know, like, so he had the same. It was the same idea. Like sometimes that's it. Like, yeah, daughter of Shiva, which
Yeah.
makes sense. Abimelech, my father, that could be my father the king, or my father is
Yeah.
king, because, or Melchizedek's another one,
Yep.
the king of
Melchizedek.
righteousness.
We don't want to get into Melchizedek.
Yeah,
Melchizedek
that's a
territory, because
whole thing. We could bring in Heiser
that's
on
a whole.
that one too, and
There's a whole, well,
jeez.
Orthodoxy has a whole thing on Melchizedek, which is I'm still untangling, and it's amazing. But I'm not versed enough in it to be able to explain it to anybody, including myself, could understand what I'm saying.
We'll
So
be here till midnight. We gotta get some sleep.
yeah, eventually, I don't know. All right. I think that we've been going for about an hour and a half now, so I think we'll just go ahead and kind of, if we have anybody have any
Yeah.
last minute questions to throw those in. And if
What?
not, we'll just kind of, what shalom in Paleo Hebrew means destroy the authority,
But he's got a
attached to
clown.
chaos with a clown face. Oh,
What?
I've never heard that before. And Dr. Kutz was, God rest him, his soul, may he memory eternal.
Wait, what?
I have never heard it that shalom in
No,
Paleo
Dr.
Hebrew means
Kutz,
that.
it's
Dr. Kutz,
yeah.
he would never, he would go into the Paleo Hebrew meanings of words for us sometimes,
Oh
and
yeah,
I never, when he talked about shalom, and he spent a whole entire 3-hour lecture on the word shalom, and it
well,
never came up. So
the thing is though too is that Hebrew evolve, like languages evolve. Like
mhm,
Dr. Hernandez at Biola even said that languages tend to simplify, but I would add they
mhm,
just evolve. That's why we've got archaic Hebrew, classical Hebrew, and late Hebrew. And if you read
mhm,
the text well enough, you can find out when the text was written.
yeah,
So the meanings of them change, and meanings of words change over time. I mean, to discover in
yeah,
English changes over time. In like Middle English, a storm discovered the house. Well, that meant that the storm destroyed the house. Today, discover doesn't mean that anymore. So,
mhm. So yeah,
yeah,
and yeah, that's
yeah,
one of those things that people
Deborah's
think, like, uh Hebrew has always been what you see in the Masoretic text of the BHS. That is very not true. We actually had, when I took Hebrew, Dr. Kutz had us first learn the Paleo alphabet, and then learn the
yeah.
Aramaic based one. So, but he did it to show us the evolution of the thought in Hebrew. So when you start with the Paleo alphabet, and then you learn the Aramaic based alphabet that they learned in the diaspora, you can see the evolution of the language. And so he really taught us a lot of behind the scenes stuff. Like that
Yeah.
class, we got 3 years of Hebrew in one in one
One.
year. Like they crammed in. There was an intensive. They crammed it in. It was just amazing stuff. So, because he was more concerned with that we learned how to think in Hebrew
Yeah.
than anything
That's kind
else.
of why I
Because
just freeload read. That's why I kind of I just read it without English. I'll
mhm,
just read it.
yeah,
And some of the stories will come to, as you read it, you're like, oh, this word, and then you're like, oh, okay, that's where I am in the story or the narrative. Like, you don't even need
mhm,
an English if you know it well enough. You can just read it.
yep.
It
And you
helps to
can tell.
retain.
Sorry, you can
Oh, that's what I was
tell,
saying. It
like,
helps you retain
yeah,
your
yeah.
the story. That's all. Okay.
Well, and you can tell scholars who have memorized the grammar and the vocabulary and all of the rules, and can spout all of the nuts and bolts of the rules, and don't understand the way the language thinks, and the ones who understand the way the language thinks. Like
Mhm.
it can become pretty obvious pretty quickly after you start listening to scholars
I
who.
learned that in Hernandez's
So
class because he would point out why is it first person singular here, but it's third person. You mentioned that earlier with Kohelet.
yeah.
It's first person singular here, and then later the verb doesn't match
Hmm.
He has some third
Yeah,
person
and
feel.
yeah, Dr. Jossberger was really good about that. We'd get to the end of a verse like that, and if nobody pointed out the tense change, she would be standing there just staring at us, like, I'm waiting. Like, oh, there's a tense change. There's a
Yeah,
tense change there.
Hernandez really, because Hernandez really, Job's his wheelhouse. His whole
Mhm.
thesis was on Job, and then he's got his book, which I don't have on hand, about something about wickedness. I can't remember the
Mm.
title, but he made it really fun. We had to translate it. The final and the midterm were we had to translate sections of Job with just a lexicon, one. And then I find out that's the standard. At the PhD level, you have to do it at just with one lexicon. You can't, like, if you can't
Yeah.
do it, then no.
Mm.
So
No,
that was
we
that
are
was
gonna put Methuselah off to another day, Deborah, because that
oh
is a
yeah,
whole
Methuselah,
nother
yeah.
3 hour 3
Dear,
hours of conversation there, digging into Methuselah. I will
sure.
eventually get around to an episode on Methuselah because there's some really good stuff there. But all right, Adam, thank you
All
so
right.
much just for coming, hanging out.
Yes,
So, what is coming out? What can we start seeing? Can we see some stuff coming on Linguist And
I'm
go,
waiting
go
for
ahead.
a monitor to
Ah,
start doing it
just
because
go.
I can't do it off of one monitor. I
Mhm.
need at least two to have my
Yeah.
script and like a power. At least you get an image. I try to give people an image of what I'm talking about.
Hmm.
And so I have one screen that has a script and another screen that has like pictures on organized in a PowerPoint. And I'd rather you have a look at that related images to what I'm talking about. So I can't do that on one screen. So I'm waiting for some money to get a monitor and then I'll be creating content. I got the scripts ready. I just need to create PowerPoints for the images and stuff. So whenever I get the monitor, I'm good to go. It's going to be, but I
And
got 3 videos on the Exodus. I'm going to do a 3-part series on the Exodus, late date, where the archaeology is and the history of it, and where certain people we think, when they lived. So
so in the meantime, if you want to read Adam's paper on Pharaoh, go join his Patreon. It's $3. Go
yes,
join his Patreon and download his paper. I have it. I skimmed the first page and it looks really good. I just haven't read the whole thing yet.
okay.
And I will get around to that and let you know. I just have been sick the last few days and just, like,
Here's the cover. Oh my gosh, Deborah, there'll be a skeleton here. There'll be a skeleton here.
I don't plan on being around here that long. So I have got 3 more videos on Baruch coming out in the next few weeks. Starting a series on the Maseroth, which will be really fun. I think it'll be 3 videos. I don't know. It depends on how I have this philosophy of we start with, because our Torah series started with 2 videos and we ended up with 5.
We had like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
So we
I loved it.
I am not married to just have to get it into just whatever number I have in my head at the beginning. If we got to go, so why Leviticus Matters was 1 video that turned into 6. There's so much stuff in Leviticus.
And then we wound up going through each book.
Right.
Each
Go
book
through
of the
so.
Pentateuch.
Oh yeah, and there was so that was a lot of fun. So the Maseroth will be at least 3. I'm going to say at least 3. Who knows? Depends on how deep we dig and how much nerding out we do. And then at some point, the Old Testament narrative walkthrough, but comparing the Hebrew and the Septuagint will happen. Junior isn't able to do it anymore, so I'm still working on the details of that. And so when we get to that point, then we will get that up and going. And I'm also thinking about an Ezekiel series because I keep getting a lot of people sending me questions about Ezekiel. And so I think it is time for that one to make an appearance. So just a lot of good things, good ideas. And eventually one of these days I will actually get busy and regularly post on my Substack. I've got 4 different articles in various stages of being done, but It just hasn't. I haven't motivated myself enough to actually finish any of them that are sitting there that need to be done. So, but anyway, there's definitely some good stuff coming up on my channel. Can't wait to start seeing Adam putting out content. He is definitely one that I send people to. I send people to Adam all the time when they have questions about ancient Near East, and especially Egypt and the other ancient Near East languages. I send them over to Linguist Amo. He is definitely a friend of the channel, and will happy and looking forward to having you back at some point in the future, Adam. So, all right, everybody, go be blessed. Enjoy what's left of your Tuesday, and I think I will be back next week with Baruch part 4, I think. Got 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it'll be Baruch part 4. We got part 4, so we got 3 more to come, I think. Depends on how we break that down. But like, well, there are like 2 Baruchs, and we're not going to get into the whole Jeremiah corpus at this point with all of that craziness. Anyway, all right, everybody, go be blessed, and don't forget every day to wake up to a little bit more mystery.